How many of us are aware of what we see on the view foil? How many of us are familiar with this? At least I wasn't familiar with this when I got commissioned into Indian Army. I happened to notice these things when I was in 6th standard in my mathematics textbook when I was doing my exercises. The first one talks about the future value of money. How does the money or the asset which you own translate into the assumption or the assumed value in future? The second one, of course, is compound interest, which says how the interest can be accrued for the money which we have saved in some investment. Both of them talk about the relationship between time and the value of money which you consistently save in any investment, and how can they create the small amount, transform the small amount which you saved into creating a fortune or a wealth for yourself. Sounds interesting, right? Absolutely. My mother used to tell me, time and tide wait for none. I hardly believed it. I have always felt that the Stoics always exclaimed, proclaimed, and said, live in the present moment. I was very happy living in the present moment. I was not interested in future at all. I suited this stoicism conveniently to my financial literacy. I've always felt I can think about my financial planning. Probably I can even score that box when the day arrives. I was sluggish. I was lazy to so-call, right? I'm a science graduate. I have always had this belief that whatever has to do with finance, money, have to be bracketed in that silo of economics, commerce, and accounting, which I am absolutely not comfortable with. I have always dreaded. This was the time when I always felt science rules the world. So my mother always used to tell me that time is at premium, use time to save, but I was somehow not interested. I have always lived for the day till then. Allow me to tell you 3 stories here. It was in 1997. I was commissioned into the elite Indian Armed Forces. I was an army officer. When I joined Indian Army, when I got commissioned into my regiment, my unit was all set to get deployed at Siachen. Siachen is supposed to be the highest battleground in the world. So my unit was slated to go there. So my induction into the unit was crisp amidst all this problems and pointers and preparations for the unit towards propelling them towards the deployment in Siachen Glacier. My senior subaltern, when I say senior subaltern, he was the immediate senior to me in my unit, has briefed me in detail. He used to say that as an officer, I am supposed to be knowing and having an ability to do anything and everything, which comes to physical fitness, wherein I am supposed to be honing my body, doing my physical fitness rigor, maintaining my structure, mental alertness, always be at the moment, at the spur of the moment to take decisions, and above all, he said, I am supposed to be aware of taking account of finances and maintaining them. That was the dreaded phrase for me, right? I was actually shocked to listen to this. But then I felt it was just one part of it. His advice went along like this. He advised me to meet my PRI clerk. PRI clerk. That was a new acronym which was thrown at me the moment I joined the unit. I took aback and I was just thinking as to what does this PRI mean. The second day of my joining the unit, my PRI clerk, Havaldar Naval, met me. I understood that PRI clerk is called Presidential or President of Regimental Institute's clerk. He's the guy who was like an accountant for the unit. He used to manage our finances, that is the officer's finances personnel as well as unit, and his records, the officer's records. He was our advisor on accounts, he was our advisor on personal finances as to how to go about our pay, where to invest, where not to invest, what to save, what not to save. Naval gave me a debriefing. He said, I'm supposed to be investing, I'm supposed to be putting some money into the saving accounts, and he suggested something called DSOPF, Defense Services Officers Provident Fund, as what you see on the view file. This is an equivalent of PPF, what you see in the civil street, that is Public Provident Fund. The amount saved in this is compounded yearly. The amount may be a multiple of anything you may call, 100, 500, 1,000 rupees, or whatever it is. The contribution is cut or deducted at source every month on the consent of the officer. We are supposed to sign a form, and we are supposed to hand it over to the accounts department, wherein they forward it to our defense accounts, and the money gets deducted from the source and directly being credited into individual officers' DSOPF. It was hassle-free. I had nothing to do. I just had to sign a form, hand it over to my accounts clerk or the PRI clerk, and he was supposed to be doing the rest of the things. But then, the science graduate in me said, you have a whole lot of time, brother. Why are you worried? Why are you worried? It's a long life. You have just started your career. I come from a middle class strata. My dream was to join Indian Armed Forces. This is a dream come true moment for me. I had a long life, a long career waiting in front of me. So I didn't have time to get into all this clutter of understanding finances, signing some forms, getting the money deducted, depositing into some investment, etc. So I was off it. I said, I will save, if at all I have to save, the day when it comes to me, we will think about it. I was sluggish. I was lazy. I wasn't going with my mother's word of time and tide wait for none. I said, let it not wait. How does it impact me? So during this time, there was a pay commission announced. Our salaries were hiked with a special allowance to people or the troops who are getting deployed in Siachen Glacier. So I thought it had all started well. Some more money. With this new dawn financial freedom, I felt like almost flying in sky. So the first year went passed by swiftly. Hectic on the operational front, wherein we had a lot of skirmishes. Borders was active that time. And eventful in the personal front as well. I had this new dawn financial freedom, right? I started splurging. My wardrobe started overflowing. I bought every expensive gadget available in the market. I had the fanciest of the watches. I even went to book the costliest Royal Enfield motorcycle for myself. None of them were a requirement, nor were a necessity. But I just went ahead. The financial year ended. My PRI clerk, Naval, came back to me and asked me, sir, can I have your IT savings? That is the savings certificates which are supposed to be given for filing income tax returns. I had none because I splurged. I had no money. I never saved. So I told him the same thing. I have nothing to show you as a proof of savings. Everything is gone. So he filed my IT return and I had to pay my taxes in full. And when I say pay my taxes in full, it was actually bleeding my purse, right? Meanwhile, most of my course mates who were posted at various places, who were contributing 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees every month to the DSOP, have saved big on their tax front. To my astonishment, none of them was a commerce graduate, nor had any accounts background. Most of them were science graduates. I was shocked to listen to this. Over a period of time, later in service, I understood that one of my regimental officers, Colonel Nair, retired from service with 1.2 crores in his DSOP fund, which now amounts to this day, that is today, 47 crores. And again, to my amazement, he was also not a commerce graduate. He's got nothing to do with accounts. He was a chemistry graduate. So what did they do so different from me? How did they do it? They planned. They invested. They were patient to wait on their investment. They never withdrew. And they reaped fortune. So the first year of my service was a financial disaster. I couldn't save. I splurged. I expended a lot of money, and I had to pay through my nose all the taxes. The second and third year of my service were also eventful. We were pressed into war, the Kargil war. I was fortunate to be a part of fighting force of this country who fought Kargil war. I was grievously wounded, had a hospitalization of 100 days. This is a time when I realized that we need to have health insurance. Though at that time, my medical branch of the army took over all the cost factors and my medical facilities. However, it struck to me later on that we need to have health insurance. The war ended, we all know, and being victorious, we were again pushed back to our peace locations. We reached our barracks. So one day, while in peace location, I went to an officers' institute. We had a club called Officer Institute. We call it as Officer Institute. I went to the Officer Institute one evening, and I stumbled upon one of my friends, Kamaljeet. This guy was there. He was passing through that area, and he was there for that night. So after the exchange of pleasantries, he told me that he purchased a house in Mohali. Mohali was in the outskirts of Chandigarh, not very well known place during that time. It was hardly inhabited that time, it was all jungles. So this guy decided to buy a flat there through AWHO. AWHO was Army Welfare Housing Organization. This used to give houses for armed forces officers. This is exclusively for armed forces officers, and the rates which were quoted are much lesser than the civil street. So he decided to buy one house there, which is a 2-bedroom flat, and he said it costed him around 16 lakhs. 16 lakhs was huge for us that time. He said he took loan. I felt it silly. And he also told me that, why don't you try? I was actually looking at him in puzzlement. I was asking him, son, see, I have a house at Hyderabad, though my mother's. That's a different story, but I have a house at Hyderabad. I am living there. Why do I need another house? And I reminded him that he also had a house in Chandigarh. Where was the requirement of buying a separate flat in Mohali, which is hardly any distance from Chandigarh? The discussion went on. We stopped there. Now, to further tell you the story about this was the year 2000, and Kamaljeet went on to pay the installments for 15 years. The day he got possession of that house, he rented it out. The rent of that house contributed to the paying of loan. 15 years down, the house was debt-free. Today, the rate of that house, or the cost of that house, is 1.8 crores. What did he do? I thought he had some background with commerce and economics and finances, etc. But unfortunately, he was a technical graduate. He was an engineer. He had nothing to do with commerce. So what did he do? He planned. He had a financial goal. He invested and patiently waited his ideas to fructify, so that instrument in which he invested creates revenue for him. It's a revenue generating instrument. I was somehow not comfortable with this. The next day I spoke about the same thing with one of my youngsters in the unit, Captain Karam Singh. I told him, what nonsense, why did he invest in this? Karam Singh hailed from an agrarian family. His father was a farmer. So the day I got my Royal Enfield Bullet, the same day Karam Singh bought a second-hand tractor and a second-hand Hero Honda Splendor. Both of them costed him 5,000 less than what I have expended on my bullet. For 5,000 he bought that National Savings Certificates of Postal Department. I was amused. I asked him, why the hell you have to buy a tractor? Why? So he said, sir, this tractor is for my father. We will rent out this tractor in our village for all the farmers to till their land. That is the second source of revenue. That is the second source of income for me. I somehow felt it is not correct. This guy is a commissioned officer. He had a lot of money. He is got handsomely paid. He should live life king size and whatnot. After spending 20 years of the mandatory service in Indian Armed Forces, he retired. He took premature retirement, and now he owns a firm which rents out machinery, tractors, and other services to the farmers in and around his village. He is rich. And he was an arts graduate. How did he do this? He planned. He budgeted. He understood where to put, where not to put. He was financially literate. So after looking at all these things, I started analyzing about myself. Why the hell my course-mates and my juniors are much more better than what I am in finances? How did they do it? I tried to understand each and every silo of it, where this money went, who went where, and how did they invest. So then I took a leaf out of my first advice from my PRI clerk. I took the advice, and this acronym, as I said, held me in good stead throughout my life. Now I wrote the full form of the acronym PRI like this. P is for pay. The pay is what we earn from our jobs, wherever we are employed. So how much is our pay? Then comes the revenue. If I am having this pay, how can I make this pay work for me? How can I make this money work for me to generate more money, revenue? Next comes investment. Now, investment is for financial stability. I just wanted to have something to be invested so that when I retire, there is something to bank upon. So can I do this, or can I get into it, or is it a far-fetched idea? This is where we were running into. So this is what the acronym which I framed for myself, PRI. The entire game of financial literacy is how to strike a balance between these three. Financial literacy has got nothing to do with strategies, economy, economics, commerce, or accounting, nothing. It is a simple know-how of money and the value it can generate when consistently invested with all discipline over a period of time. Simple money. 5 rupees you invest every day, 365 days, it will yield you more than 1,500 rupees. So how is this possible? How can we translate it? After going through all these things, I created an RIP. I wrote an RIP for me. That is, I'm not writing an epitaph for me. The RIP is not rest in peace, of course. It is just to say revenue generation. I have siloed myself with 20% kept apart from my salary. You can do it. It is nothing carved in stone as to percentage how much is supposed to be done. You can have 10%, 5%, 20%, up to you. Revenue generation. How I started investing in real estates. Went for risk-taking, equities. Next comes investment. I started my investments in mutual fund, SIPs. Finally, I understood how to go about doing portfolio management. How much I should risk, how much I should have in value-based things. How much should I go for, investing in rest of the things. How to make all these balanced. So what am I getting at to? Financial literacy. Why do we need financial literacy? Financial literacy gives you a chance to have financial freedom. It tells you as to how you can set your future goals, financial future goals. It gives you stability and security over a period of time. It gives you an opportunity to retire young and pursue your passions and hobbies. I have taken my premature retirement from armed forces, and now I am here pursuing my passion and ambitions. or my hobbies. So start young. I wasted 7 precious years of my life. Start young. Start planning, investing, budgeting, and by the time you reach your mid-30s, you're there. You're there at the gate of the wealth which you desired and deserved. Wishing you all an immense financial success. Thank you.